There's a reason that I still wanted to be a Soul Knife, though, and
Well,
it
yeah, I
wasn't
mean
just because
the
Bob. It wasn't just because
well, I
Bob
mean
asked for it.
that was what I was going to say. Yeah, the Soul Knife is important to this build.
Yes.
Yeah, it wasn't just like, all right, fine. Bob asked me to do this. Fine. Here's 3 levels of Soul Knife. Now I'm going to make the character I really want. Hello, friends. Robert Bevan here, author of the Caverns Creatures series of comedy, fantasy novels, and short stories. With me is Cameron, aka Prince Phantom, and today he has another build for you. This one, this was an assignment I gave him because the there are a couple of videos on this channel that are performing better than all the rest of the videos on this channel, and they both have to do with the Soulknife Rogue. We have the subclass review that I did with Sam, and the best feats for the Soulknife Rogue, which I did here with Cameron. They're both doing great. Why stop there? Give
Make a
YouTube what
build
it
for it.
wants. Yeah. So
Yeah.
Cameron, build me a Soulknife Rogue build. So going into this, what was your goal?
So the Soul Knife is interesting, right? Because as just a base rogue, it kind of builds itself if you want it to. Um, you can just take the subclass abilities that you get, do your standard rogue stuff, and you're gonna be fine.
Yeah,
You won't be the most powerful player of the character, but it is one of the better rogue subclasses. It's easily top three, so you'll definitely have a great time with it. I wanted to see, though, as always, what I could do differently and a way that I could maybe take the subclass and pull out its strengths in a different direction. Because there's a couple of areas where the subclass is actually kind of weak. One of those is damage. And the problem with the soul knife specifically in terms of damage is if you want to use this main feature, which are the soul knives, right?
yeah, sure.
They don't work with things like sharpshooter, which is something that the rogue can use in order to increase their damage if they would choose to, and other subclasses do frequently choose to. So
I do. Yeah.
yeah, so you're sacrificing a little bit of damage. That being said, in return, you get an amazing subclass. So for many people, that sacrifice is worth it, and I would agree in many cases. The rogue, as itself as a baseline class of its own, is already not great on damage. It's probably honestly like second worst in terms of just single target damage for the marshals.
Mhm.
The monk is probably the only thing that's lower than it, and it's
The
and it's
lowly monk.
well, and the other thing is the monk actually outpaces it in early levels,
Hmm.
where
That's
sneak attack isn't actually adding that much damage, and you're only getting one attack per round. So you could even argue the monk might actually be better in terms of damage than the rogue. So that being said, you take sharpshooter, and that kind of alleviates a lot of those problems. Soul Knife can't do that. So what do we do instead? I wanted to see, and this is kind of a challenge I issued to myself,
now, I
really.
mean, to be clear, Soul
Yeah.
Knife can take sharpshooter, but they can't use it with
Yes.
the Soul Knives.
Yes. Yeah. And the other thing is, you don't have to use the soul knives, obviously. You can use a
Right.
regular weapon.
Yeah,
That being
but then why
said,
be a Soul Knife?
yeah, kinda.
I mean,
You're
you
what?
can. I mean, they do have functions outside of combat.
Yes.
So,
And that's going to be a lot of what we talk about here today. The
okay.
soul blades feature at ninth level. It has one thing that functions solely with your psychic blades, and it has another thing that doesn't necessarily require you to use them to attack. Um, and your 17th level feature requires you to use your psychic blades, but your 13th level feature doesn't. So, eh. We're not actually going to be getting to any of those today, though, because I am who I am, and I am a multi-classing fiend, and you can't stop me unless you specifically request me to. And you didn't this time. So I wanted to bring out the Soul Knife's power in a different way. So we concede the fact that we're not going to do amazing damage. We can still do okay damage, but let's concede the fact that we're not going to do amazing damage. And instead, what if we try and just not get into combat at all?
This
Um,
sounds like the way I play Rogue.
and that's a fine way to play. And I want to talk about this
Terrible way to play
because,
for me.
well, because a lot of tables are shifting to this style of play. It's in some parts due to the popularity of live play shows that don't focus in on combat. You watch something like Critical Role, you watch something like Dimension 20. They do good in combat, but it's rarely more than once per session, and they might sometimes go multiple sessions without any combat. That's not uncommon for them.
Hmm.
And many people watch these shows and they base their games off of them. There's nothing wrong with that. Don't get me wrong. But if that's the style of play you're playing, an optimized build really isn't doing that much for you, is it?
No, I mean, you could be argued that class isn't doing that much for you.
Exactly.
If all you're doing is role playing, then
Yeah.
um,
So, and you'll find if you look through D&D 5e, most of the features are centered around combat.
oh yeah,
Uh, it's if you, I mean, hey, we're going to be picking some subclasses and some multi-classes that are specifically going to give us out of combat stuff. And I had to pick and choose and dig through stuff to find things that bolstered our out of combat utility at low levels. Like it's I had to be picky with it. Whereas if I was just going for damage, I could take any number of different things and have great damage numbers, right?
right. But that's not
So
what this build is.
exactly. So I position this to you, viewer, if you are playing at a table that heavily emphasizes roleplay, that loves out of combat exploration, conversation, and trying to talk down situations. If you're the type of person that loves that sort of style of play, there's nothing wrong with that. It's not me personally in a lot of cases. It is sometimes. I like a bit of balance. But if that's you 100%, this might be a great build for you. So, I uh I'm actually really interested in how somebody might use this build because we're going to start out if you're ready to jump into it if you don't have any more questions.
No, I'm
Um
ready.
we're going to start out with our race. We're going to take Changeling.
Okay,
Now, how much do you know about changelings, Bob?
not much. They
So,
change.
exactly. And that's about all they do. They don't get many features. They get two skill proficiencies, which is useful for us. We're going to be a bit of a skill monkey with this build. Not going for every skill in the game. We're just going for the most important ones. And you'll find that that's really all you need anyway.
Hmm.
So, and your other party members can kind of cover for some of the other ones. So
Yeah,
the
we talked about
changeling,
that with the skilled feat recently.
exactly, yeah. The changeling offers no mechanical benefits to combat at all. But it gives you those two skill proficiencies, and it also gives you the ability to change your physical appearance at will. That is difficult to quantitate as to exactly how powerful it is. But in the right hands, it can be amazing. Now, a couple of clarifications. It does not change your clothing. So you will need to
Okay,
carry around a wardrobe, perhaps in a bag of holding or something. So keep that in mind. But you can always, knock out the guard, steal his clothes, change into an exact copy of him, and you've got that whole cool espionage scene going
sure,
on.
yeah,
And we will eventually pick up spells like detect, no, sorry, disguise self, so that if you need a quick change, you can do that. But we always have this option even at low levels, so you can change your appearance into something else for espionage, deception, persuasion, whatever it is you need to do. It may come in handy, especially if you're in a role play heavy scenario.
okay.
So I think this is a great place to pick up Changeling. I think changes are really cool. I don't pick them up often because there's no mechanical benefit to combat for them. But if you're
Still,
planning on,
being able to change your appearance at will I mean, I could see me if I wanted to play that character. Yeah, I don't care
oh
about any
yeah,
other mechanical benefits. This is
it's
the
a
one I
super
want.
fun concept.
Yeah.
Yeah. So for for two skill proficiencies that we're going to pick up to begin with here, we're going to go with persuasion and insight. And we'll have when Bob puts this on the website, we'll have all these proficiencies listed out, so you don't have to keep up with them with me talking here. We're going to pick up a
Oh yeah.
lot.
Look, yeah, there will be a link in the description. Read along.
Yeah. So we'll pick up persuasion and insight here. We're going to pick up a lot more right at first level. So just don't worry about it. Keeping track of them all in your head. Just know that
Okay.
we have them. So starting stats, dump strength, you're going to go 8 strength, 16 dexterity, 14 constitution, 10 intelligence, a 14 wisdom, and a 14 charisma. We're getting a +2 to dexterity and a +1 to wisdom from our race.
Okay, that's pretty good.
So we have pretty even stats, nothing crazy, but we've got 16 dexterity, 14 whiz, 14 charisma. Those are going to be the baseline for most of our most important skills. You notice we didn't really care too much about intelligence, The only intelligence-based skill that we really care about is investigation,
Mhm.
and that is frequently subbed out with perception. There's an argument that maybe it shouldn't be, but that's here
Yeah, I
neither here
mean
nor
the
there.
the realistic the what am I trying to say? Yeah, there's a way that people play, and you got to
Yeah,
take that into account.
yeah. So well, that may not be as useful. And like I say, there can always be somebody else in your party. You probably have a wizard or somebody that's prioritizing intelligence. They can take that and you'll be fine. So, uh, we're going to be taking a couple of multi classes, as you can probably tell with that stat array. So just keep that in mind. For the background, pick up anything you like. Remember, backgrounds are customizable rules as written. You can take whatever you want. The sample backgrounds in your player's handbook are just that, sample backgrounds. If you read the actual paragraph about backgrounds, it will tell you there are sample backgrounds, and you can customize them however you like by swapping out the skill proficiencies and the little ribbon features they get however you like. So
Yes,
take whatever you want.
we have an entire article and video devoted to custom backgrounds
Yep.
that might have aired by the time this goes live. If not,
Oh,
it'll
cool.
be airing soon.
Cool. So we'll take perception and stealth, arguably the two most important skills in the entire game, and we'll be using them frequently. Um, so perception helps us avoid combat, and stealth helps us avoid combat.
Well,
Both good.
perception, yeah, it's a perception universally, stealth conditionally.
Yeah. So for level 1 and 2, we go rogue, and we haven't gotten our subclass yet. So I'm just going to explain what we're doing as a rogue in these first two levels. We're
Okay.
going to pick up deception, intimidation, investigation, and sleight of hand with our 4 skill proficiencies that we get as a rogue. Um, for the expertise, we're going to put that in perception and persuasion. Now you'll notice I didn't do stealth, and that's normally the typical pickup for rogues, right?
Yes.
I don't think it's actually necessary. See, stealth DCs are based on the monster that you're trying to sneak past, their
Hmm.
passive perception. A monster's passive perception is normally no higher than 15. Like you have to get into really high level play and you're trying to sneak past a dragon or something to
Hmm.
get in even 17, 18 range. Because passive perception is just 10 plus your perception bonus. Most monsters aren't proficient in perception, so it's just 10 plus their wisdom.
That's fine. However, I just really like to make the things I'm good at. I like to take them as far as they can go.
That's fair. And the thing with this, the reason I say we don't need it as much is because we're going to get future features that buff our skill checks so much to where we're going to be fine. The
Okay.
reason I wanted perception and persuasion is because perception checks come up all the time, and
Yes, perception, of course.
we may not want to
Why?
use our resources on all of those constant perception checks. And
Okay.
persuasion,
Persuasion.
because
Why?
persuasion checks are generally the things that determine whether or not you're going to get into a fight. Can be, right? If we're in a hairy situation. So
But would that
those
not be
DC.
better left to one of the charisma guy in your party?
So I can't determine that there's going to be a charisma guy in your
Okay.
party, right?
Okay.
So I'm building this character to do it all themselves. Now, if you have a charisma guy in your party, you can probably fine tune this in a certain way where, yeah, you can leave it up to them. So we're gonna kind of be that charisma guy though.
Are,
So
is the rest of this build based on that?
sort of.
Okay.
It's based on a lot of things. It's a bit of a mishmash. I see. Here's the thing: optimizing for avoiding combat is very nebulous, right? I can't just
Yes.
point to a damage number and say we do this much. It's this good. It's kind of wishy-washy. So will this work in actual play? I think so. It may be DM dependent. It may be table dependent. And I think though, in the right style of play, let me give you this example, right? Uh, the designers released a campaign module called The Wild Beyond the Witchlight. They
Hmm.
advertised it as being able to play through the entire campaign without ever rolling initiative.
Wow.
Now, obviously, you could go into fights if you wanted to,
Sure.
but it was possible, they advertised, that you could go through the whole campaign without ever fighting anyone. Now, I've not played that campaign. Viewers may be able to attest if that's true or not, or exactly how easy that was. but they advertise it that way.
Hmm.
Contrast, you have something like Dungeon of the Mad Mage, which is a 20 level mega dungeon filled with enemies that want to kill you.
Yes.
You are not getting through that without rolling initiative. Two styles of play. This might be good for the Wild Beyond the Witchlight campaign and campaigns similar to it. Kind of get where I'm coming from now?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
I was just wondering, like, if you had a charisma guy, could you sub in uh, no
Stealth or,
right, right, yeah, yeah.
yeah, you could. Now, here's the other thing. Your stealth is probably going to be fine. What you really need to be worrying about is your party stealth. And
Yes.
we're going to get into that here in a couple of levels. So put a pin in that for now. We'll
Okay.
come back to that. So for the first two levels, avoid combat wherever possible. That's just a good word of advice for low level D&D play. Period. You are super squishy at low level no matter who you are,
Hmm.
and you will die very quickly. So avoiding combat in general is a good thing. And I will say, don't necessarily worry so much about, oh, well, if I don't get into combat, how will I level up? People don't really play like that anymore. Most people play by a milestone system where once you
Right.
reach certain story beats, you level up. Or you could do it the way that like Baldur's Gate 3 does it. And if you avoid a combat scenario in Baldur's Gate 3 by talking and persuading,
Hmm.
you just get all the experience that you would have gotten for killing all those monsters.
That makes sense.
Yeah, so either way you want to run it, you can run it either milestone or EXP. It still works, so don't worry about that. And for cutting action, that's great to have. You get to laugh at the monk player that has to spend key to do the same thing. Moving on. So at level 3, we get our subclass Soulknife Rogue. And the psychic knives, we will use them, though will be useful if combat does come up. They have a really cool thing where they don't leave a wound
Mm, I like that.
if you hit somebody with them. It's really cool for assassinating somebody. And as a changeling, like I said, you can steal their clothes, change into them. No wound is left. There's no evidence. I mean, they're dead, but there's no evidence
Yeah.
of how they died. So it adds a cool layer of role play and tactical espionage that you get to have.
Yeah, you
Um,
just have somebody else's dagger on you, change into them,
yeah,
soul knife until they're dead, and leave that dagger inside
yeah, yeah. There's a ton of cool
and run
stuff you can do
away,
with it.
making sure everybody sees you.
Yeah, and the important thing to note is, hey, we might not be doing a whole lot of damage. Nobles don't have that much HP anyway. It's okay. If you want to assassinate somebody higher up, probably not like I think the noble stat block in the DMG has like 15 hit points, so you'll probably be fine. Anyway, so the bigger gain for us at this level is actually the ability to buff ability checks. So the Soul Knife gets an ability called Psi Bolstered Knack, which reads if you fail an ability check using a skill or tool with which you have proficiency, you can roll one psionic energy die and add the number rolled to the check, potentially turning in the failure into a success. You expend the die only if the roll succeeds, and you get a number of die equal to your proficiency bonus times 2 that scales with your proficiency bonus, so it's okay if we multi-class out. The die size won't increase. It increases at 5th level, 11th level, and 17th level in Rogue. We're not
Mm.
going to be getting to those, but that's okay. The D6
What
is
what
probably
is
going to be
the
enough.
is the D6? Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's a D6 starting off. We have 4 to begin with, and that will scale as we level up. And we regain, let me see here. As a bonus action, you can regain one of them, and you regain all of them when you finish a long rest.
Okay.
So you technically have like 5.
Yeah.
So with this, we get the ability to bolster all of our ability checks. This is really, really useful for things like stealth. Hey, you miss your stealth check by like 1 or 2. Bump it up, you're good to go. That's why I said it's not super necessary because the DCs that we're trying to hit with that are often so low, if that makes sense. We also
Oh,
get
it
another,
makes sense.
yeah, we also get another
Absolutely.
amazing feature here called Psychic Whispers, which essentially gives us the spell Telepathic Bond, which is a 5th level spell for free, nearly.
Mm.
You get uh, you expend one psionic energy die, and you get a telepathic link to a bunch of people, most likely your party members.
Yes.
And This is really useful for if you want to split up and like do a sneak attack on a bunch of people at once, not literally sneak attack because you're probably not playing with a bunch of rogues, but a surprise attack with a bunch of different people to end the combat kind of before it begins. That's another way of avoiding combat. If you can kill all the combatants in
Kill
a
everybody.
surprise
Yeah.
round, then it's not really a combat, is it? And that's totally valid too. If there's a blockade and you can't get around it and there's no way of talking out of it, hey, just sneak up on them, have everybody shoot them, and if they're all dead before they get a chance to respond, that works too. So,
Yeah, I wouldn't call that avoiding combat, but yes.
yeah, well, you're not taking damage, hopefully.
Yeah.
So, Psychic Whispers helps a lot in facilitating that sort of style of play if you want to have a very cooperative party. And again, it is something that kind of scales with the player level of your party. This whole build kind of does that. If you don't have a party that buys into the style of play, it's going to be near useless. I'm going to be honest with
Yeah.
you.
Yeah. Because yeah, we said before, the first couple of levels you want to avoid combat. I'm thinking, what if the rest of the party is fighting?
Just stick back,
Yeah.
hang back, get
I'm
out your
I'm
little
just here.
crossbow
I'm
and
just here for the milestones.
get out your crossbow and just poke at them a little bit from the back line.
Or get out a magazine. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe that too. Practice your calligraphy. So, where we're going to go from here is kind of interesting. We're going to go into Druid for 3 levels.
Okay.
We're going to go specifically into Wildfire Druid. Now, Wildfire Druid is probably my favorite Druid subclass. It gets a ton of cool stuff. I've wanted to use it on a build for a long time. This isn't exactly how I've wanted to use it on a build, but I'm taking it anyway. It
Are we
gets
taking this? Are we taking Druid specifically for Pass Without Trace?
yes, but there's some other
Okay.
neat stuff we get along the way.
Okay.
So we'll pick up a couple of cantrips. Guidance, automatic D4 to all of your skill checks, even better than you were before. Now you can add a D4 and a D6.
The stack.
Yep, yeah.
That's pretty good.
So you can also grab Druidcraft, which I think if we're wanting to have utility stuff, I think Druidcraft kind of fits in that. But you can pick anything else you want; it's fine.
Yeah.
Um, for first level spells, I suggest Absorb Elements, just for hey, stuff happens, right?
Sure.
You
Yeah.
might
Yeah.
you might even just trigger a fire trap, right? It happens, saves you a lot of HP. Goodberry is very good for healing. Again, if combat does come up, and I'm trying to give you a couple of things if combat does come up, that we can still contribute. And the first thing of that is Entangle. Entangle is a great control spell that will work well even when you get it here at 4th level. It'll be fine. You can cast it. It'll help the rest of your party, give everybody advantage on their attacks. It's great. So,
Yeah. No
uh,
argument here. I like Entangle.
yeah, the subclass also gives us a couple of free prepared spells. At 1st level, those are Burning Hands and Cure Wounds. Uh, Cure Wounds is fine if you need it in an emergency.
It's
Burning
nice to
Hands
have
might come
free.
up. Yeah, yeah. Burning Hands might come up. You got a bunch of people right in front of you. Sure, go for it.
Well,
Right.
how does that compare? What are our soul knives doing right now? Are they
Uh,
doing
a,
anything?
a D6 plus a D6 with
Okay.
a sneak attack plus mod plus your dex mod.
All right. So we're probably not using burning hands.
Yeah, probably not often, no.
Yeah.
But it's automatically prepared by the subclass. So
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
for 2nd level spells, we are picking up Pass Without Trace, obviously, and we'll pick up automatically prepared for the subclass Flaming Spear and Scorching Ray. I don't expect to use either of those super often, but hey,
What's
if
the range on the soul knives as compared
60
to
feet,
scorching? Wow.
and
And what's scorching
I
ray?
believe Scorching Ray is like 90. Hang on, it is 120, double the
Okay.
range. So yeah, there's that.
You
That
might
might come
use
up.
scorching ray. Yeah.
Yeah, but do remember you're using your wisdom modifier for this, so you only have a 14 in that. So
Yeah.
your accuracy might be kind of shaky with the scorching ray.
Well, I mean, you use scorching ray anyway, until they get within range of your knives.
Yeah, fair enough. But what you're going to be using, I also, and I know you hate the spell, but I also suggested for this spell picking for this level picking up augury.
Oh, all right. I thought you were going to say like, Jim's magic missile.
No, 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 no,
All
no.
right.
I'm not that crazy. No,
Ah, no, that's actually a good spell. I just hate it thematically.
fair enough. I totally understand.
Yeah.
But hey, if you say, "Hey, should we take the left path or the right path?" It might help you, right? And it's I think it's a ritual. If it is, great. If it's not, whatever.
Uh,
Uh,
yeah, yeah, I can't stand behind augury.
that's fair. But for the build, it, you can pick it. But there are other good second level spell options that druids get that are fine too. You can pick up something like Spike Growth if you wanted.
But you picked augury when spike growth is available.
We don't have any synergies with Spike Growth.
I mean, that's entangle, but it does damage.
Okay, so again, I'm trying to avoid combat, but Spike Growth is totally fine. Yeah, you can take that too.
All right, let's cast augury right now, and I'll be the DM. Say, should I pick augury or should I pick spike growth? And
Although you have to form it into like is this a good thing to do? And they say wheel or
all
woe,
right,
remember? It's
I say, whoa, no, okay,
I'm seeing how much I can annoy Bob with this segment.
that one hurt.
All right, so moving on. Um, we do take these druid levels primarily for pass without trace, but the other big thing that we get, along with some of the other spells, is the wildfire spirit, which is the second level ability of the wildfire druid. They get a companion. It is a little pet. It's a bit more durable than a familiar, a little bit less than like a ranger's, like a Beastmaster Ranger's
Hmm.
companion. But the most important thing is it only takes a wild shape to summon, and it lasts for like a good number of hours. So I think at this level it lasts twice your druid level in hours. So that's 6 hours if you're a third level druid.
All
So yeah,
right,
plenty. Um, and it has a free every turn bonus action 15-foot teleport that damages creatures that are around it when it teleports and can bring along two buddies with it.
that's pretty good.
Infinite use, just once per turn.
Yeah.
So, why this is useful is teleportation is useful in and out of combat. It is great to have to just move your party around. There's a gap that's just a little bit too far for everybody to jump. 15 foot, that's a pretty big gap. You
Yeah.
can move everybody across. It can get everybody through the gates of a bar, of a jail cell. It can get everybody through basically anything.
Up on the roof.
It's,
Yeah.
yeah. So you can take two people at a time, and most parties, that's going to be two trips. And you can totally do that. It'll take, I think, in combat rounds, like 12 seconds. So, yeah, easy. It's super useful. I highly recommend if you have not played with a Wildfire Druid before, even if you take nothing else from this build, just play a Wildfire Druid. They're super fun.
Yeah.
And you get to you get to be Nightcrawler, just blinking around the battlefield everywhere. It's great.
That's
Um,
yeah. It's like a reliable version of the blink spell.
yeah, it's almost free Misty Step.
Yeah, well,
It's
that's
just
true.
15 feet instead of 30. Like,
Which
that's how
I
good
mean,
this
you use
is.
it twice, and that's your Misty Step.
Exactly. So, it's really, really good. Also, note at Druid, we do get the ability to wear medium armor and hold a shield. If you've noticed, we're not really holding many weapons. If we are using weapons, it's normally our psychic blades, which we conjure for free in a
Okay,
hand.
we've we've been running into some issues with this sort of thing. Do you get the armor and shield proficiencies, when you multi-class
Yes.
into it?
Yeah.
Okay.
So the there's a guide in the DMG, or I think it's actually in the PHP, that says what armor proficiencies you get when you multi-class into a different class.
Hmm.
So for some classes, they don't get all of the armor proficiencies if you multi-class into them. For
Right.
example, if you go from like wizard to fighter, fighters get heavy armor proficiency by default. They
Yes.
don't get a wizard multi-class into fighter would only get up to medium armor proficiency.
Okay.
I think Paladin is actually the only thing that use heavy armor proficiency when you multi-class into it. Now, the way you can circumvent that is something like a cleric subclass gives you heavy armor proficiency at level 1, and
Hmm.
that's completely separate from the multi-classing rules.
Right.
So you just get that.
Yeah.
So yeah, Druid grants medium armor and shield proficiency when you multi-class into it.
Okay.
So yeah, it's just a little table in the PHP. It's in the multi-classing section. You can look it up. And we do get that, so that'll buff our AC by quite a bit. You're probably we're not taking a lot of feats with this build, ironically. You'll notice we
Oh,
we
are we
stopped.
doing
We
we
stopped
doing
right
ability
short at
score
level 3.
improvements?
Well, not that either. We stopped right at short at level 3
Oh
on
yeah.
Rogue, and we stopped right short at level 3 on Druid, and we're gonna multi-class again.
Okay.
Of course, if you want to, stick it out for another level to grab a feat, that's fine, or an ability score improvement. What I'm saying though with this is that your dexterity is not going to get to 20 necessarily with this build,
Hmm.
so you're going to be better off wearing medium armor than you are light.
Okay.
So after that, we can take our dip into Druid. That's given us Pass Without Trace. I will say that is the most important component of the build. Pass Without Trace is necessary if you want your entire party to stealth. It turns the 2-ton tin can of a paladin into a mouse. It's great. And it allows your entire party to get in on this playstyle. It's great because we're getting it right at level 6, which is when, we're starting to get into, a bit higher level of play.
Hmm.
I know it's mid tiers, but there's a significant jump when you go from, levels 3
Right.
and 4 to 5 and 6. So we're very happy to have that. So for levels 7 through 9, we're going to multi-class again, and we're going to take advantage of that 14 charisma that we got because we're going to go into Eloquence Bard for 3 levels.
Have, all right. Have we stopped Soulknife Rogue altogether?
Yeah, pretty much.
Oh wow. Okay.
Now, the reason being, it's let me give you my reasoning for that. The Soulknife Rogue gives you good stuff. It's just let down by the rogue class in general. It needs
Okay.
to be on a better class. It gives you good stuff. It doesn't give me enough stuff to make me really want to stay in it.
So yeah, I was thinking
For
the
this type
those
of build
those
in
those
particular.
teleportation knife things are cool, but now we got a little fire spirit. So
Yeah, and it's infinite uses, whereas the little,
yes.
teleportation blades are not. They're very limited. So
All right.
we go into Eloquence Bard. Why do we do that? Well, we do that to make our talking a lot better. This is the other area. Now, and I want to get this now because you get into higher level play, you may find that sneaking past some things may not any longer be plausible. Might be a big boss encounter that your DM has planned, and they say, no, you have to fight this thing. Not literally the DM saying you have to fight this thing, but for narrative
Right.
reasons,
Yes.
you got to confront them. The dragon's about to, come burn down the village. You got to do something about it.
Hmm.
You can't just sneak away from that. I mean, you can, but that's morally questionable. So why do we want Eloquence Bard? Well, we get a couple of spells first off. Minor Illusion and Mage Hand are both just good utility cantrips.
Sure.
Charm Person goes right along into exactly what we want, right?
Yes.
Uh, Disguise Self, I mentioned this earlier. It allows us to do the quick change if our changeling ability isn't fast enough or if we don't have the clothing to match what we want.
That
And of
feels.
course, we'll pick up. Go ahead.
I'm not sure how I like that. I'm a changeling. I can do this pretty well. I mean, I get what you're saying. It doesn't change your clothes, but I
You
mean,
can always pick up something different if you want.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah. I'm just saying that's what I would pick
sure.
because I can see the situation coming up where, oh no, there's a guard coming around the corner. I need to change now.
Mm.
Anyway,
Oh yeah, I mean, it'll definitely come in handy.
yeah. And of course, we're always picking up silvery barbs with this because, of course,
Silvery
we've
barbs.
got a we've got a bunch of first level spells because we've taken some druid levels and some bard levels now, so we can definitely use that effectively. For
Absolutely.
second level spells, because we are taking 3 levels, we'll take invisibility because I mean, of course, and
Yes.
we will have the spell slots to upcast it as well to potentially cast it on multiple party members. So you understand we're getting higher level spell slots than we have spells known because of the multi-classing. So we're a 6th level spellcaster because we've taken 3 levels of Druid and Bard.
Mm.
So we have 5th level spell slots, 2 of them actually.
Oh, I didn't
Not
realize it
sorry,
worked
not
that
fifth
way.
level, third level spell slots, not 5th level.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, Sorry, the delineation between class level and spell level
Yes,
biting me in the butt there again.
that's something I'd really like them to fix in the new edition.
They're not
I
anyway.
know.
The that so that that means though you have to actually get enough levels in a class to get class spells of that level. So
Hmm.
you can't like be a 19th level wizard, then take one level of cleric and be able to cast ninth level cleric spells.
Right.
So that's kind of the rub there. But that means we have spell slots to upcast our invisibility with. We'll also take suggestion, which we can also upcast with to target multiple targets. And suggestion is perfect for avoiding combats.
Yeah.
So notably, our spell save DC won't be as great as a normal bard because we only have a 14 in charisma. This is another area where you can take some ability score increases to improve that. But we have silvery barbs, and we also have unsettling words as a eloquence bard, which allows us to use one of our bardic inspirations to subtract a d6 from the creature saving throw. So we can use that plus silvery barbs to make sure that they fail the most important save.
All right.
All right,
Okay.
so we've got unsettling words, we got our bard spells, right? So let's next talk about the other feature that College of Eloquence gets at third level, which is Silver Tongue. This feature is really good, and it's going to make us very consistent at our charisma skills. It essentially, well, what it does is it gives us a a floor of a roll of 10 on any persuasion or deception check, meaning you cannot roll lower than a 10. If you roll lower than a 10 on your die, your
Hmm.
d20, as you make one of those checks, it is a 10 instead.
Oh, that's good.
So, what we've built here, just to kind of summarize, and I should also mention at with Bard, you also get Jack of all trades, which
Hmm.
gives you half your proficiency bonus in all skills.
Wow. Yeah.
So even those skills that we didn't take proficiency in, we still are pretty good at. We also get to pick up expertise in deception and insight. So to refresh, we have expertise in persuasion, perception, deception, and insight. I see these as some of the four, some of you can argue, but some of the four most important skills in the game.
Uh,
Perception, yeah, go ahead.
these deception and insight is this part of the eloquence bill bard or is this optional?
No, this is a base bard feature.
Base bard. Okay. Right. Right.
Yeah. I should also mention the bard, when you multiclass into it, gives you another skill proficiency, which will pick up survival.
Oh. All right.
Survival is kind of the last like skill that I think might come up frequently, depending on your style of play. Um, so that leaves out athletics. We didn't pick up athletics or acrobatics. I don't see the need in them. People always say acrobatics is such a good skill. When's the last time you rolled for acrobatics? Not necessarily you,
I
Bob,
do
but
occasionally. Yeah.
it doesn't.
Um.
I don't think it. I don't see it come up very often.
Athletics. Our strength is garbage anyway. So
Yeah, exactly. We'll leave that to someone else, and that's fine. We have to leave something to somebody else. We can't have an
yeah,
18 in every stat. So
getting
we have
close.
though, yeah, we have though got basically completely ignored all the intelligence skills.
Yeah.
And that's fine. I mean, most of the intelligence skills are just for, you know, recalling knowledge anyway, which
The
can be
lore stuff.
useful. Yeah. Investigation is really, like I said, the only one we're missing out on. Just have somebody else in your party pick it up, and you'll be fine. Investigation doesn't normally come up in time sensitive situations where you have to be the one to do it. You
Yeah.
know. Um, so what do we have here? We have a character that is specifically equipped to basically be an expert at talking, sneaking, and being aware of their surroundings. We have features that give us great skill bonuses and layer dice rolls on top of that. We can bolster our skill checks with any number of things. We have guidance. We have the bolstered neck from Soulknife.
Right. Yes.
That, by the way, is doing a lot of heavy lifting for us. I don't want to discount that. I know I said that we dipped out of Soulknife very quickly. There's a reason that I still wanted to be a Soulknife, though, and
Well,
it
yeah. I
wasn't
mean,
just because Bob. It wasn't just because
well, I
Bob
mean,
asked for it.
that was what I was going to say. Yeah. The soul knife is important to this build, isn't it?
Yes,
Yeah. It wasn't just like, all right, fine. Bob asked me to do this. Fine. Here's 3 levels of soul knife. Now I'm going to make the character I really want.
yeah.
No.
So what it's doing for us is it is facilitating all this. Rogue gives us a ton of skills. Rogue
Hmm.
gives us a really great bonus action. Rogue gives us this great feature with our subclass. do great features. We still get the telekinetic bond with everyone. Don't forget
Yeah.
that either. Like we're layering a bunch of stuff on top. All of these things don't necessarily build on top of one another. They are each tools in our toolbox for how to avoid conflict. We use them in different ways. They're applicable in different scenarios. We can take more levels of certain classes if we want to exemplify certain areas. For example, in the written build, I suggested that you go ahead and take 2 more levels of Eloquence Bard. Go up to Eloquence Bard level 5. With that, you can pick up some more cantrips. You can pick up Hypnotic Pattern and Dispel Magic.
I
That's a
noticed that
great.
the cantrip you picked was friends. Like,
Yeah.
if there was
Okay,
ever
okay.
a spell that is not going to help you avoid a fight, it is friends.
Okay, let's talk about that because it's a really cool thing, actually.
All
Because
right.
normally you're right. Normally you're 100% right. But as a changeling, and specifically even with Disguise Self, you can actually kind of gain friends a little bit.
Hmm.
So what you do is you go up to the person that you want to talk to, already as not yourself.
Yes.
You use friends, you get the advantage, you make sure that the conversation is not going to last more than a minute,
Hmm.
right? So it's a short thing. Then you walk away, turn the corner, you just change back into something else.
Right.
And now they're angry at someone who's not you.
That's someone. Yes.
So this could be great even for potentially like getting a guard off of his post. You
Hmm.
could, go up and have a conversation with him as somebody else. He goes, you go away. He's like, hey, wait a second, that person used enchantment magic on me. Goes off to go find them, and the post is empty.
Sure.
So it can be used in some fun ways. It's
Yeah. I
fun to
mean,
experiment with.
you're just talking about distraction. I mean, there's also framing.
Exactly. Yeah, that can be really cool.
Some guy goes to the bathroom, and take his place and start up a friendly conversation. When he comes back, he's in a world of trouble.
Exactly. Yeah. So friends is it's a bad cantrip used normally,
Oh,
but
I love it. I
if
mean, yeah, it's got a bad reputation across the board, but it's one of my favorites.
if you just play around with it a little bit and just think about it, it's got a world of potential. Um, but of course, we are getting into third level bard spells at this point, so you're also getting stuff like hypnotic pattern. So if you do
Hmm.
get into combat, that's an easy spell to cast to just probably win the fight there and then. You can also pick up dispel magic, which has its out of combat uses as well. So
Sure.
we're also getting, and the other reason that I kind of wanted to go to fifth level bard because we are getting bardic inspiration with this. I didn't even mention that. I should have. There's so many different things we're layering on top. That's another dice roll that you can add on top of not your skill checks, but other people's skill checks.
Okay.
Bardic inspiration doesn't work on yourself
That's fine.
unless you're a 14th level lore bard. Uh, but it's fine because we're kind of good enough by ourselves at this point.
Oh yeah.
Bolstering our
Well,
other party members can be a big boon now,
sure. Yeah. I mean, you're the skill guy, and part of that is
helping
making
everybody
other
else.
people good at their
Yeah.
skills.
And so when you get to fifth level bard, you also get font of inspiration, which gives you your bardic inspiration back on a short rest instead of a long rest.
Mhm.
So that's another great reason to take bard to level 5 if you want to. And
Yeah.
for the feat that you get at level 4, I really recommend ritual caster
Why wouldn't you?
because just get even more utility. The druid does get ritual casting, but the bard doesn't. And with this, you can take the wizard's ritual casting list, which gives
Hmm.
you amazing stuff like unseen servant, detect magic. We don't really need find familiar, funnily enough, because we have our druid
That's true.
wildfire spirit, which can fly. By the way, I didn't mention that because of course it can.
Yeah.
It does everything. So
This might be the first
that's
mention of picking up Ritual Caster, not specifically to get Find Familiar.
yeah. And I will say, if you want something different as your feat, if you wanted something like maybe telepathic, this could be a great place to pick that up too. Detect thoughts
I,
could come in a lot of handy.
you know what? As long as we're leaning into this, this is one of the few times I'll say actor.
Yeah, totally. Especially as a changeling, and
Hmm.
it's it's a bit DM interpretation because the changeling race doesn't actually say that it changes your voice, but it has to, right?
I
It,
don't know
it,
why.
I feel like it kind of needs to in order to make it seem convincing that you're actually changing into somebody else.
Well, no, I mean I think changing forms is enough. That's
Okay, all right. Well, we disagree on that point. That's fine.
yeah.
So that's where the actor feat can come in handy, right? So that's totally a great place to take that. And I could I I could totally see taking that. I could even see if you didn't want to necessarily play a changeling, if you want to play something else, you could take a couple levels in Warlock to get the Mask of Many Faces
Hmm.
invocation, and that combos amazingly with Actor. So yeah, there's a
And I
couple
mean,
different ways you can take this.
Warlock is so front loaded, just getting so much
Yeah,
crap at first level.
yeah. I was tempted, but I go
Mhm.
Warlock in a lot of builds, so I wanted
Yes.
to
Yeah,
differentiate a
that's
little
fine.
bit. That's why I thought it'd be cool to take like a druid on like a build, right? That's not something you see
Oh,
every
I
day.
like it. I like what you've done here,
So I've left us off at
except for augury.
okay, fair enough. I've left us off here at 11th level. Now, I will say, past around 11th level is where this style of play starts to run into some issues because you're starting to fight things that maybe you can't talk them down. Um, devils and demons and
Right.
gods and mindless robots and elementals. The style of play may not work super well. For example, that campaign, Well Beyond the Witchlight, I think only goes to like level 8.
Hmm.
I think it might even be less than that. I'm not sure. I'd have to double check it. Maybe just something around that. It doesn't go to high levels. I know that. So that kind of gives you an idea. This might not be a great character if you're going a full 20 levels with your campaign. Most people aren't, though. So
No,
if
but
you're
I mean, all right.
staying, I'd say if you're staying below 15th level, you're probably fine.
If you wanted, all right, if you are going higher though, and there's going to be some unavoidable threats, can you just shift gears and be effective again, or is this going to cripple you?
I don't think so. The way I think you keep being relevant is just keep taking more bard levels because
Yeah.
that's increasing your spell casting, and the bard gets really good control spells.
Hmm.
And like I said, even something like Hypnotic Pattern, you cast it on 5 dudes. Yeah, your spell save DC might not be as great as a regular bard's, but some of them are still going to fail. And you still have unsettling words, and you still have silvery barbs. Like you're gonna be effective in combat, even without doing even without necessarily trying. I guess is what I have to say. To
Or, I
be
mean,
fair,
if you went full druid after that, and
you
you
could
get a
too.
bunch of summoning spells.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, even just going a druid to level 5 would get you something like Conjure Animals, which pumps
Hmm.
out great damage even at high level play. So yeah, that's totally fine too if that's something you want to lean into.
Yeah.
Going Conjure Animals could also give your party summons for flying eagles that can carry your party around in the air with a like 100-foot fly speed or something. So yeah, there's a lot of great options for uh, and I will say, you can go more levels in Rogue if you want. That won't improve your combat quite as much, but it will improve things like your out of combat utility. It will improve your sneak attack damage, yes, but not at a significant point at this level.
No.
Um,
It'll give you
and
more dice if you're making
Yeah,
a,
your dice die
like
will
a
increase.
yeah, if you're making a shit ton of ability checks.
Yeah, exactly. So there's a bunch of different ways you could take it. I think sticking with one of these 3 classes is going to be your best bet rather than multi-classing again. I know, strange for me to say that,
Mm.
but uh, it's
You were
really
you held back on this
yeah, only 3.
one.
So and I have to concede, optimizing for something that's not combat is very nebulous. I
Yes.
can't promise that this is going to do amazingly your table because it's very dependent on how your table is going to play. But I do want to submit it as an interesting option. A lot of people don't aren't super into combat, and that's fine. Play the game that you want to play. If that's the game you want to play, build something like this. It doesn't have to be exactly this, but build for out of combat utility. And that's fine.
This will give you reliable usage of skills, and you can always
Yeah.
you can make situations where you're going to use skills. It's not
Yeah.
a thing where you have to wait for the DM to say, "All right, now you make a skill check." You can
Yeah.
go out of your way to make that happen.
Exactly. You can play to your strengths with this kind
Yeah,
of character. And, make sure your table is bought into this style of play. Make sure the other players are also interested in this, and you'll have a great time with it. I mean, it's it's different strokes for different folks. And For some people, this will be the dream. For others, they're not interested, and that's fine. Some people
Hmm.
aren't interested in my combat focused builds, and that's cool too. Do whatever is fun for you.
I mean, like even even combat heavy, uh, you know, play style is not all combat. There is out
Yeah,
of combat stuff, and as long as it's not tipped too far in that direction, then I mean, you can still fight. You might not be
yeah,
super effective, but out of combat, you'll be the man.
exactly. Yeah, and so I genuinely think this will work as long as you're not doing something like a dungeon crawl every week.
Yeah.
You'll probably have a lot of fun with this. So I hope people look into maybe the optimization community doesn't really look at this style of play super often because it's not really seen as something that you need to optimize for.
Hmm.
But if you do want to optimize for it, I think there's a lot of untapped potential in the game. So hey, in the comments, suggest what you think might be some interesting subclasses or builds or spells that would specifically be for an out of combat style of character because we don't see that very often. And I'm very
Yeah.
interested to see what the community would think about that.
And if you do use this, I'd love to know how it worked out for you.
Yeah, I only built it a couple of days ago, so I've not had a chance to play test it myself
Oh,
yet. But I would love to in a
yeah.
campaign. And if one of you get to, please, like Bob said, let me know.
All right. Well, thanks a lot, Cameron, for another fantastic build, and thank you, dear viewers, for watching and being here and liking and subscribing to the channel and everything. So do that. And yeah, we'll see you next time. Goodbye.
Bye bye.